Is your economy as bad as the US government's? We sure don't pay taxes, but I can tell you which gun to buy. They found me! Help me. You gotta help me. No!
With this new mall update, we have a new economy, meaning all these guns, they all have different prices, excluding the shotguns and sidearms. So let's talk about it. You also get a different amount of money based on what kill you get with certain guns. For example, SMGs, the Omen, Viper, RCP, and the shotguns, Kanut and Urakin, you get 2 times the money. But with Kadeo, Auril, Vezin, Marui, and all of the other pistols, you only get half as much as you would with Omen. I believe it's 150 with the SMGs and shotguns. So, that does incentivize you buying these other guns instead. You also have to account for the reload change. For example, all of the rifles, they now take a whole quarter of a second longer to reload. Everything has a longer reload time now, so you can't get straight back into the action after you run out of ammo. Also, as you can see, a lot of these guns are cheaper. The Omen and Viper, and possibly the RCP, they're all cheaper. The Omen's only 1,000 now, instead of 1,100. The Kadeo and Auril, those are also cheaper, 200 less. The Vezin and Marui, those are $300 more. The Vezin, it's also had a range nerf.
They all taste like metal. What is this about? Oh, I'm recording. Whoops. I'm supposed to be talking to you about gadgets, not eating them. My bad. It's alright though. We did a video on this already. You should check that out. Way more in depth. I'm just going to do a quick in and out. We'll be done with this. Throwing it. They had the new guided throwing, so you just aim it, and then just it'll throw along the path. Pretty simple. The farther away you put your hand, the further out it'll go, and the closer it comes closer. Cool. Great. And that just blows. Incendiary. Puts a little bit of fire on the floor. Great if you want to block off the doorway, block off the connector, or something like that. Smoke. Can't see through it. Explodes on impact on the floor. I believe it'll still bounce on the wall, but it only goes off once it hits the floor. Stim. Pretty simple. Hit yourself. You get stimmed. Breaching foam. I was gonna blow this wall up, but I kind of got smoke all open. We'll do this wall. Spread across with the trigger. Once you're ready, you can hit it with either your hand or your gun. Just blows the wall up. Pretty simple. You can do it on hatches too. Usually you want to go down on a hatch, not up, but I was going to give a brief mention to the other 3, the specific ones. There's some more specific ones for defenders, but I don't have access to defenders right now, so it's these ones. Flashbangs, drones, and cloaks. Flashbangs, flashbang you. Your screen goes white for a second. Easy. Cloaking devices makes you go invisible. And drones, you can fly around, spot people. It's got a certain battery life, so you gotta be careful, but very useful. And to say, the cloaking device does taste the best. I can't prove it to you. The stim does taste pretty good too, but cloaking device for sure. 10 out of 10.
Alright, now, something I've seen, or the lack thereof, is a settings review from just breachers in general. So we're going to go through there. Now, all of this is general stuff. Server ping method is matchmaking, where it'll find either a server matching your ping if you're in a party, or the average of the party. For me, I haven't really done anything with this. I believe it was single by default. And up here, disable blood. I choose that just because it reduces the graphics on my screen, makes it easier for me to see if I'm hitting people. Disable corpses, I get rid of that. if there's a corpse on the ground sitting in front of this doorway here, I'm not going to be able to see through it. That just reduces my line of sight. Skin effect visibility, that's if someone has a DLC skin that has a special sound, like the bubble, the horror, or I believe it was called adrenaline. This guided throwing is very nice. It shows you a blue line, and depending on how far out your non-throwing hand is, it will throw the grenade further or closer. But do keep in mind, you still do have to put in considerable force, generally equivalent to before guided throwing. You still do need to throw that grenade. And that's general. In audio, you have 3 different audio types: the game, the music, and the voice. I tend to keep my music volume low. Sometimes it's nice to have that music volume there, so that you can hear that music that's there when either close to round end or the EMP is planted. Because as the EMP time ticks down, music starts playing. I tend to keep it at 0 because I can tell just based off the beeps that the EMP provides, but some people might like that. The game volume, that's just gunshots, player footsteps. I tend to keep that at max. The voice volume is going to be your VC volume. All of your other teammates and stuff, all that sort of stuff. I tend to keep that at the max as well. Join server muted. This is on by default for some reason. Turn that off. Generally, you want to be talking to your teammates. Charm sound is, as it suggests, the sound will play if you have everybody, for everybody, yourself, so only you can hear your charms, or nobody, so no one can do any charms. Or they can do it, but you can't hear it. I tend to keep it at everybody because if someone's cocky enough to do bait with their charm, I can just swing them because I know exactly where they are. Microphone input, I tried push to talk a while ago. I just didn't have enough buttons on my controller to warrant that. Some people might like that. I think voice activity is enough, and if you need to mute yourself, just mute yourself. Speaking of muting yourself, if you've died, please just give your call out and then mute yourself. You don't need to clutter up comms with anything other than callouts. You can do goofing off and stuff like that. You can do that in the buy phase. Calibrate height. If your height ever feels off, just click this button and you're generally going to be all good. Your movement mode, this is entirely personal preference. I tend to keep it at head. Some people like it to be their hands. The crouching mode, I have it as press. People say that smooth crouching, using your joystick to go up and down. People say that's the same speed, but I feel like it's slower. Press, you can just press one button. Disabled is just disabled. I like the in-game crouching, but it's entirely personal preference. Rotation mode, I have it as smooth, max, just because I'm used to it. Snap turn, I used to use this. I had it at 45 just because I didn't want it too drastic. It's entirely personal preference, but if stick drift gets to be too much, you can just disable it. Of course, that is assuming you can't fix your stick drift. Repel mode, I liked it before. Some people might want to invert it. That's entirely personal preference. Swap thumbstick input, I haven't done anything with that. I like movement as left, looking as right. And auto sprint, generally just turn that on. You don't have to click the trigger and cause that stick drift to occur. Weapon grabbing, entirely personal preference. If you're used to toggle, use toggle. If you're used to hold, use hold. Same with gadget grabbing. Controller vibration, I would turn that down all the way. I do it for battery reasons. You might want a little bit more immersion. Horizontal weapon angle, entirely for comfort reasons. Vertical weapon angle, entirely for comfort reasons. Your hip height, comfort. Holster forward distance, that's entirely comfort as well. Hand smoothing, if you have very shaky hands, I'm exaggerating a tiny bit, but if I have hand smoothing at 1, it'll make it more stable to even more stable. It just kind of smooths your hands. The virtual stock, I personally use virtual stock. I think it makes it a lot easier to aim. I have my offset as 20. That basically changes how far left or right your gun will be when you're using V-Stock. I like V-Stock, some people don't. You don't have to use it. Swap wrist HUD is personal preference. Mirror main weapon, that's personal preference for if you're like left-handed. Swap pistol and ammo if you're left-handed. Swap gadgets and EMP if you want it. Reticle, I have seen very little people go through settings, and this is one of the main reasons to do it. You can change the size and color of your reticle. You can choose between the size of your red dot and holographic, and then you can do RGB for the color of your reticle. Personally, I like a small red dot and a medium-sized holo, so I have it as 7 and 16, and then I have my reticle color as cyan, this cyan preset. I used to have it as green, just all green, and then before that, I had it as a purple color, but I like the cyan. I would suggest something that has great contrast with other, the surroundings. Purple does a great job with that. There's not much else that's purple. Green isn't bad either. Cyan isn't bad either. And then opacity. So this control point symbol, I might not be the only one, but it tends to get in my way. As you can see, you can't see past it. So, all the way at the bottom of comfort, you can change the opacity of that so you can see through it. And you can have it when you're not aiming and when you are. I don't have a gun right now, so I can't really show you, but it's nice. You should definitely use it. Remapping, I recommend you do something if you want. I have a strange, we'll call it, strange remapping, so it's entirely personal preference. I did this after playing for a little bit because I realized I didn't like how it was originally, and specifically so I could have crouch as a different button, just because it made the turning a little bit more difficult. And then graphics, I tend to keep it at low just for performance reasons since I'm on Quest 2, but you can amp it up to medium if you want. It's entirely personal preference. And that's it. That's the entirety of the settings. With that, please go through your settings, change anything. It can help your gameplay a lot.
Alright guys, thanks for watching. For those of you that have a limited amount of time, I've created this little part at the end, just as it's sort of recap. So, in the beginning, you should be buying attachments. Attachments will just help with recoil, they'll help you overall. It's not that much of a learning curve if you've just gone through the shooting range. You should also be buying utility. Utility is a huge part of the game. You can do so much with a grenade, an incendiary, even a proxy. All of these are so useful. And lastly, you should be going through your settings. I'm not over-exaggerating when I'm saying that changing your settings can change the entire game for you. But that's it. Thanks for giving me a little bit of your time. Have a good one.